Ladies and gentlemen, we have a Super Bowl 49 rematch between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. This is going to be a great Super Bowl, and I think this could end just as good as it did in the last time they played against each other. So if you want to hear more, tune in right after the intro. Thank you for tuning in to podcast number 84 of Sports Talk with JWock. I am your host, Jonah Walkenfoos, and like you heard from the intro, I'm going to be talking about the Patriots and Seahawks Super Bowl rematch back from the last time they played, which was in Super Bowl 49 in 2015, where the Patriots won 28-24 on a very controversial last call from the Seahawks, where they decided to throw on the 1 yard line instead of run the football with Marshawn Lynch, one of the most dominant running backs I've ever seen in my lifetime. But anyways, we're not going to talk about Super Bowl 49 that happened 11 years ago. We're going to be talking about the current Super Bowl, Super Bowl 60 between the Patriots and Seahawks. Once again, in my opinion, this is going to be a much better Super Bowl than I think a lot of people are anticipating, but let's kind of dive into that. So, first off, this game obviously being played at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, which is the home of the San Francisco 49ers. So, if you are going to this Super Bowl game, it's going to be nice and warm, or you would at least hope, but it's always nice in the winter when you could go to a football game and see like nice warm weather, or be in nice warm weather, should I say. But anyways, I'm going to be giving my prediction and then just kind of the keys to this game for both teams and how they could win and what what the teams need to do to limit the other team and better their chances of winning this game. So first off, I'm going to give my quick predictions on what I think the score will end up being. Personally, I think the Seahawks are going to win this. I think they're going to get their get back against the Patriots, winning this with this final score of 31-28. I think it's going to be a close game. The Seahawks have pulled away and have almost blown out multiple teams this year already, but the Patriots like to keep games close and keep them ugly, which could put the Seahawks in a pickle, but I do think they will pull it out, especially with how good their defense is. But anyways, here's one of the key things to this game, in my opinion, and that is limiting turnovers. So let's look at how Sam Darnold and Drake May have done so far just in this playoffs as far as turning the ball over. So for Sam Darnold, he actually has 0 turnovers in the playoffs so far, which is very impressive to say the least, considering he was the leader, I believe, in interceptions during the regular season. So what a turnaround for Sam Darnold, especially from what he was doing last offseason or last postseason when they had to play against the Rams when he was still a member of the Vikings. People were making jokes that he was seeing ghosts. I mean, he played so bad in that performance, but overall, he has really turned it around, especially in Seattle. Nobody was expecting the Seahawks to make it to the Super Bowl except maybe a couple fans and then Seahawks fans, obviously, but it's pretty nostalgic to see the Seahawks in the Super Bowl again. As a Broncos fan, I'm still bitter about what they did to us in the Super Bowl multiple years back, but it is good to see, the Seahawks, Patriots, Broncos, those kind of teams back up top. It feels a little nostalgic, kind of reminds me of how my childhood went, especially when the Broncos had Peyton Manning. But anyways, this is not an episode about the Broncos. This is, we're going to give credit to the two teams that made the Super Bowl. And then as far as Drake May and his turnovers, he's had 5 turnovers in the playoffs so far. He's 3 for 6 in lost fumbles. So he's fumbled the ball 6 times, but he's lost it 3 times, which is not good at all. Fumbling it 6 times in general is not good. And he's also had 2 interceptions this postseason. So he's definitely struggled in many categories, but you do have to, give him some leeway. He's had to go against extremely good defenses in the playoffs so far, and he's still been able to pull out wins. So in my opinion, it's like, yeah, he's turned the ball over a lot, but he's still winning football games, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. But overall, I think the key to this game is going to be how the defenses perform against the opposing offenses. So let's break down each defense, especially with the games they've already played in the postseason. So let's start with the Seahawks, where in their divisional versus the 49ers, they obliterated the 49ers, by the way. I think it was 41-6, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong with that, but I do know they held the 49ers to 6 points. They only allowed 236 total offensive yards, 128 of those being passing and 108 of those being rushing. They forced 2 turnovers, 1 interception, and 1 fumble versus Brock Purdy and that 49ers team. And they held a 49ers team that averaged 37.5 points per game, excluding Seattle, to 0 touchdowns that game. I mean, that was very impressive. The 49ers, granted, were missing George Kittle and some big pieces, but overall, that is still extremely impressive to see what Seattle's defense was able to do to just completely shut down the 49ers offense in that whole entire game. You just have to give flowers to that Seattle defense. They've been very good this year, by far a top 3 defense in the NFL this season. Could be number 1 if you wanted to go that far, but overall, the Seahawks defense has been very good. And then in the NFC Championship versus the Rams, they won that game 31-27. Yes, Matthew Stafford had a pretty good game, but yeah, allowing 27 points against the best offense, it's like you take it because you still pulled out the win. They allowed 374 yards, and they also forced a turnover, or kind of forced a turnover. It was more of a muffed punt, so that's more of just a user error on the Rams. But overall, the Seahawks still pulled it off. They were very close to losing that game, but they pulled out the win. A win is a win, and I think they're going into this game with huge confidence because their defense this year in general has been dominant, and it's been fun to watch them. Their offense as well. Sam Darnold's been moving the football down the field. Jackson Smith and Jigba, his favorite target, has been unbelievable this year with over, I believe, 1,700 yards receiving this season. Like, that's an incredible year for him, for JSN. And I have to just give a big shout out to him and that Seattle offense because I was not expecting them to be that good this year, especially after trading both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in the offseason. Adding JSN and having now Cooper Kupp, it's been working out, as it clearly shows, since they're in the Super Bowl. But anyways, let's go to the Patriots side on the defensive end, where we have their first game against the Chargers in the wild card. They held Justin Herbert to 3 points. Justin Herbert, a.k.a. If Man. They held him to 3 points. This Chargers team, everybody was like, well, if they had a better offensive line and all that stuff, it is what it is. The Chargers lost. Oh, well. Move on. But next up, they played the Texans, who had one of the, if not the best defense in the NFL this year. The Texans did. They held CJ Stroud, who really hasn't been that great this season, to 16 points. But the big key is they forced 5 turnovers, 4 of those being interceptions, and also 1 fumble. The Patriots were just continuously forcing turnovers against the Houston Texans, and that overall led them to winning this football game in a very good and dominant fashion. And then we have the AFC Championship, where they went against my Denver Broncos. They won that game 10-7. It was a battle in the trenches. Who could run the football better, especially with how horrible the weather started to get in the fourth quarter, especially with all that snow? I mean, the Patriots overall held the Broncos to 7 points and forced 2 turnovers, which honestly led them to winning that game. If they didn't force those turnovers, they lose this game. They forced 1 fumble and 1 interception. Yes, it was against Jarrett Stidham, but still, they really stopped the run game, which is what Denver needed really bad. And if Denver had a run game, I think they probably could have won that game, but they don't have a run game yet, especially with Dobbins being out with an injury. So that is why they won that game. I know people will say, well, if Bo Nix played, I understand that, but I don't really like to make too many excuses. I know I kind of just made one about the running back situation, but at the same time, it's like, it is what it is, and injuries happen, and you just have to play through them, and the Broncos couldn't execute, and that's what happens. But overall, I think the Seahawks have the better defense, so they definitely have the edge on defense, even offensively, in my opinion. But I just feel like this Patriots team is just, they know how to stop good defenses. It's just like you went against the Texans and the Broncos in the playoffs already. Going against Seattle's defense, yeah, it's going to be tough, but they've already gone against some incredible defenses already. It's like they're battle tested. We already know this Patriots team can handle those defenses. It's just going to be a matter of, can Drake May and the offense move down the field and actually start really putting points up on the board, because this could end up being a shootout, if anything, because Seattle's offense has been terrific in the postseason especially, and I think they're going to continue to keep that momentum going into the Super Bowl. But overall, the Patriots have had an interesting path to the Super Bowl, playing limited offenses, especially the Chargers without their offensive line, or like with most of their offensive line injured. The Texans' offense was definitely bad. And then for the Broncos, they had to go against the backup quarterback. But overall, they still ended up pulling out those wins. They can't control who they are and are not playing against. So they took care of business, and you have to give them props for that. So shout out to the Patriots. And then for the Seahawks, they've been very dominant on both ends of the field, and they're looking to take on the Patriots, as most people have them winning this game. Like, they have, I feel like, more pressure on their plate, because it feels like most of the media and just people in general are picking the Seahawks to win this game. So that adds a little bit of pressure to them. In my opinion, if I were the Seahawks players and stuff, I'm deleting social media. I'm not worrying about what other people have to say. I'm just playing my game and what they can do to help them win Super Bowl 60 and take another Lombardi trophy to Seattle. But at the end of the day, this game is going to come down to which offense in general can exploit the opposing defense. I think if the opposing offenses can exploit the opposing defenses and find their weaknesses and get points on the board, that's going to be huge, because I think this could be a defensive battle. And which offense can limit their turnovers, in my opinion. I think if Drake May if he keeps turning the football over like he's been in the playoffs so far, I think this could be a long game for the Patriots. But if he can take care of the football, I think the Patriots have a great chance of winning this game, but who knows? Anyways, that's going to be the end of podcast number 84 of Sports Talk with JWock. I apologize if I was kind of speeding through this. I've had a little bit of a long day, but that's not a good excuse. Talking about the NFL, I'm like in full on like NBA mode at this point, since the trade deadline's been going down. If you haven't been checking me out on social media, I've been making videos about certain trades that have gone down at the deadline. I'm not doing all of them because that's a lot of videos to make and I don't have that much time. But anyways, I'm in full NBA mode. So if I'm kind of stuttering in this NFL talk, that's partially why. Usually when I'm like really focused on one side or like one sport, I really struggle transitioning to the next sport really quickly, and that's kind of what I had to do here. So bear with me on that one, but thank you guys so much for tuning in to podcast number 84 of Sports Talk with JWock. Before I go, I would like you to comment down below, who do you think will win Super Bowl 60, and drop your score predictions down below. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Sports Talk with JWock. If you haven't already, hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. And I hope you all have an amazing week. God bless.